What up, y'all? It's your man Abuamerican. I'm back. What I'm going to do is a quick installation of a RX 5700 XT on my RX 5700 XT rig. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you step by step on how to do it. I'll do this as quickly as possible. So first off, what you want to do is, in my humble opinion, people might disagree with me, is you want to disconnect the Pcie cables. Now, believe it or not, once this is installed on the graphics card, it's very hard to get underneath here and install the cables, especially the power cable. But I'm going to save the power cable for later because I need to look how I'm going to route the cable. And because of the way it hooks up, it can be problematic. So then what you do, make sure your slot here is open. If you saw my PCIe cable video, you want to make sure this is open. Pop this inside of here. You see, it's got the large port, small port. You put the large port, small port inside of here, and then it just slides right in. Now what you do is lock it in place so that it doesn't just pull off or pop off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to install this right here. So now what I want to do is, this cable, I want to run it underneath the support bar and then put it here. And then just make sure your cables are all crazy unmanaged. Just film right here. And then I want to plug the PCIe plug into the board so the computer can recognize the card. Guys, it doesn't fit backwards in any slot except for this one. If you put this in backwards, it will fit here. You will 100% fry your graphics card, so don't make that mistake in this slot here. You can actually put the graphics card on the board here, and it'll run just like, it'll mine just like any other thing, just like any other card, but we have the PCIe riser, so we're just going to plug this in here. So now, what we want to do next is we want to hook up the power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find me a power cable down here. I've got a bunch of power. Actually, you know what? Before I do anything else like that, look right here in front. You know, see how this is sliding all around? I was digging around there and I felt the graphics card move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this in place with this screw. So you don't have to put 2 screws in. I put 2 screws in because sometimes these holes, like on this rig, the holes are drilled through, you know, and so some of them are bad. So I'll put both in just as a safety measure. It's not totally necessary, but because this one, usually it's looped closed, but this one isn't. It stops it from sliding around and, like, you know, going all funky. So now, back to what I was talking about. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug up a power cable. So I've got this fixed power cable, PSU, power supply unit back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull up all my cables back here, and I'm going to untangle me one. And so I'll try and pick one that is highly untangled, like this one right here. Boom. And then so what I'm going to do is, you can do this how you want, but I like to take the main cable, not the split off cable. This is what my preference, and I plug that in here. Because this is a twin 8-pin power supply. This is a 6+2. That means you can turn this into a 6-pin. You see? Take it off, it becomes a 6-pin. But the GPU takes an 8-pin. But like my other rig, it is a 6-pin and an 8-pin. So it has an 8-pin and then a 6-pin. But what I want to do next is I want to power, can you point down here? This right here. The GPU riser needs power. And so what I need to do is I need to use a splitter. And this is why I didn't plug in the power cable. This right here, GPU riser. It needs power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little wire right here. Can you show this? This is a power splitter. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the power supply. This is the main power supply from the PSU. I'm going to split the power from this unit between the 8-pin and the 6-pin on the riser. So now I need to look at how this is going to work and how it's going to look. So I want this, like, let me see how this is going to look. So this is going to go like this if I plug that in like this. Because this cable, I want it facing upwards. Yeah, so this is going to work. So what I'm going to do now, you see how the cable split into a 6-pin? Boom, I'm going to put the 6 here and make it an 8-pin. Plug that in. I'm going to take the 8-pin, split from the power supply, and plug it in here. Boom. And then I'm going to take this, and you're going to come down over here, and I'm going to plug this in to the GPU riser, the 6-pin slot here. And this is the part I hate right here, because I got to get underneath the GPU with the cable. I could technically take the GPU back off and do this. It makes it easier for me. But, you know, I got to do things the hard way. And then so now, let's trade places. I'm going to take this, and the little clip thing on here, it goes upwards. It doesn't face down, it goes up, and I'm going to plug it in. You're probably not going to be able to get this on video. My lovely assistant is filming for me. I have a hard time just finding it. Can't find a hole in the dark, which is surprising because I got 9 kids. But now look, if you're struggling like this and you can't find it, you can't find the hole, you can always do this. You can pop the GPU riser off. That's not a problem. You can pop it right off, like I'm about to do here. It's being difficult. Boom, you pop it off. And then you just plug it in. See, I had it upside down. I couldn't even see that I had it upside down. Can you see over here where I'm at? And then you can just plug it in. I'm still struggling even though I can see it. And then what you're going to do is just put it right back on the way you took it off, or the way you put it on earlier when it wasn't on the card. Line up the slots, push it on there, and then lock it closed. So now it's on there and it stays on there. Now as you can see, these cables, this is important. See how the cables are? This fan on this side, come over here please. This fan might not spin if this cable touches it. All it takes is very light pressure. This thing will stop spinning with just a light touch. So what you want to do is you want to cable manage now. Those cables, let me find me a zip tie. I thought I had all my equipment gathered together, but this is something I forgot. So now what I'm going to do is get some very basic cable management. I take a zip tie. I pull these cables together out of the way, and I close them off so that they don't interrupt the fan, because these things get hot. When we came in here, it was cold, and now I'm standing here and I'm almost sweating because the GPU miner below, which is complete, is still producing heat, and it's really starting to warm up in here. So now I got the cables going over the back of the GPU. They're out of the way of the fans. All the fans can they can spin freely. So now we see everything is basically hooked up. We have our PCIe cable hooked up to the PCIe riser. This allows the board to communicate with the graphics processor. We have power to the GPU from the PSU, and we have power from the GPU down to the riser split over a GPU splitter cable. So now, because this system has been running, all we have to do is pop the switch. It's going to boot up.
What?
You just got to wait for it to boot up. And here we go. Okay, let me see. So we come over this side. We already see that everything's starting to spin. And oddly, this GPU is like turning its fan for some reason. And the other ones aren't, which is very odd. So I don't know why that's happening. But what we will do is we need to take a look at it on Hive OS. So I'm going to take a look here in Hive OS and see if I can figure out what's going on with it, because it really shouldn't be running right now. It's logged off. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to pause and we're going to check out. Alright, so we're back. What happened was, actually, one of these were bad. This PCIe, you see I wrote it on here, bad. PCIe riser was bad. You have the 12 volt and the 3.3 volt light, and the 3.3 volt light is for the PCIe riser. So what happened was, it turns out that the PCIe riser was bad. We're going to go check on system how this is looking and see if the card is registering, because again what we're having is we're having the fans not spinning, yet we're having fans spinning randomly and haphazardly here between all of the rest of the system except for this one. So this might still be bad. I got this and it wasn't new. This had been opened before. So what we need to do is need to check if this is registering on system and if it's actually functioning properly. But we need to do that from the PC. As you can see here, GPU is showing GPU 4. That's the new one, and it's actually found a share. what happened was this, and the GPU isn't bad. That was just a mistake on my part. The riser was bad, but the GPU wasn't. You know what happened? At some point, I actually hit the network cable here, and it's not stuck in properly for some reason. It just slides in and out. It doesn't. This latch doesn't work, and so it wasn't communicating with Hive OS, and therefore none of the cards were showing, and that's why nothing was working. Now you see all the fans are working, everything's spinning, everything, you can hear it. It's like starting to power up. I'm going to open this window because it's getting hot in here fast. Wow. As you can see up there, temperature rising really rapidly. Yeah, and so now we have 4 cards mining, and I haven't done any sort of tuning or anything on this. I just left it as is. But no, not here. They're really winding up and spinning up. What are we running at right now? They're still warming up and they're still tuning. 212 mega hash right now. So it's going to tune up. It's going to get a lot faster than this, inshallah. But as you can see, they are running strong. And so, yeah, that's basically the very, very basics on adding a card one by one once you have your system up and running. So I love these gigabyte cards. You know, they sound like they're running really hard, but these things, man, they run like 100 watts, man. Okay, the new card's running at 115 watts. Wow, what the heck are you doing? But I haven't set the overclocks or anything on it, so what I need to do now is this thing's running about 10 watts higher than the rest of the cards. So what I need to do now is go ahead and take a look at the overclocks in Hive OS and see if they're higher than the others, or if it's adapted the overclocks automatically, because usually after I set the overclocks on the first card, any card I install after that, Hive OS is taking over the same overclock settings. But it could be the case that it didn't do it. It did it for me before, and it's never happened like that before, so it could be the case that this one's just running like raw power and it's not running with any overclocks. So I'm going to go check it out and see if that's the case. And yeah. And guys, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug this. I unplug it. Believe it or not, even though I'm not worried about power now, given how much money I'm making, it still doesn't make sense to waste money. The keyboard is 5 watts. The screen is 10 watts. I just turn it off. Boom. Unplug it, turn it off. There's no need for it, So just turn it off and, yeah, boom. Reduce your power usage. Get more money. Okay, so hopefully you can see this clearly. It's a bit fuzzy on my screen. So this is the new card that's added because you see it has the least amount of data, over the system. So we know this is the new card. And one thing it's doing is it's running at a cooler temperature, although it's running at lower mega hash. And like I said, guys, this 53 mega hash, I can get more mega hash out of it, but I haven't messed with them. I haven't messed with any overclocks, no tuning, no nothing. I just put these on here raw. But as we see, the overclocks are all relatively the same, and we're getting close to the same output in terms of wattage with all of these cards at the same settings. But with this one, same settings as them all. It automatically overtook the previous settings, but it's running at like 10 watts higher than the other ones, despite running cooler. So this is what they call silicon lottery, guys. You just can't figure, I'll have to tune this card a little bit. I'll try and get more mega hash out of it for the 114 watts, or I'll try and maintain the 53 mega hash and lower the wattage here. But that's a video on its own, this tuning right here. But I figured I'd just show you guys this, and that everything's running and that the system is running. I got 4 more cards coming this week, and I'm going to be installing them on this system right here. Okay, finally. So we got the system running. We got it up and running. And I'm going to explain what I think happened to this thing. It's running at a pretty standard, hash rate as all the other ones. 109 watts, we got the wattage to go down. And I really didn't do much. I'll explain what changed and why I managed to get this to work the way I did. Let's just take a look at this beauty before we turn the lights on. Listen to that. Just money being printed. So, here's what I believe happened. Now, when I opened the package to this new GPU, it was obvious that this had been a return to Amazon. Someone had purchased this. Amazon maybe did a really crappy testing job, said, oh yeah, hey, power's up, and they returned it to stock and inventory, and then started selling it again. And I purchased it, and what happened was, what I believe what happened is if you look here on Gigabyte cards, there's this little white switch right there. It's a little tiny thing. I don't know if you can see it. This has a dual BIOS, and I talked about this in another video. And so what happens is you can run two different BIOS profiles on this card. Now, if you try and run the 5700 XT BIOS modding that we know of online, that we learned from like Mining Chamber and the other guys, you will brick this card. And so what happened is the person, he tried to BIOS mod the card, he bricked one BIOS, couldn't get the card to work, because I did that to all three of these, and then he just sent it back, not knowing that there's a switch here to go to a good BIOS. Because if you brick one BIOS, you can flip the switch, and then you can just basically load from Windows or Hive OS, and you can continue to use the card like nothing happened. So what I did was, to recover these, is I flipped the switch, got the good BIOS running, and then I flipped back to the bad BIOS, and then I just rewrote the old BIOS. I just reflashed the old BIOS back onto the bad BIOS, and then now they're both good on this one. So what's happening here is this card has a bad BIOS and a good BIOS, and right now I'm running on the good BIOS. So what I'm going to do is I have stickers, like here you see Echelon and whatnot, and you see I got my numbers down here on my card so that I can match them up in the system. I'm going to go ahead and just slap a letter on here, like a B, and then I know this has a bad BIOS on it. And then later on, when I want to switch to Windows, because I'm not running Windows now, I'm running Hive OS, I'll just do what I did to the other ones. I have this BIOS, the original BIOS. This is why I like to have my cards all the same on one rig. I could zombie this up. I could put a 3060 or 3080 on here or something, you know, and mix it up. I don't want to do that. I like to keep it all the same so that I can say, hey, you know what? All the BIOSes on this are the same. All the BIOSes on this are the same. All the BIOS on my other machine are the same. And then so basically, I don't have to go mixing and matching and looking and searching for BIOSes. Is this the right one? Is that the wrong one? No. It's all there ready on the card for me to go. So that was a little bit of troubleshooting for you guys on getting these cards to work when you're running into problems. In general, I should have probably just sent this thing back. I might still do it, send it back to Amazon and just order where I got the other ones from. But we'll see. I mean, if it continues to perform like this, then I'm fine with it. It's just running like 4 watts higher than the other ones, and that's satisfactory for me. So there you go, guys. You got an idea how to just do a basic installation of a new graphics processor on your mining rig. I'm going to be doing 4 more here this week. It was up over there. And yeah. It's your man Abuamerican for another episode of Alpha Geek, Alpha Nerd. I keep on getting my own titles of my own shows wrong. Of Alpha Nerd. Hope this was informational and interesting.